Friends, it's Matchmaker Eric here. Matchmaker of Talking with Fence People. And have I got a match for you today? Drake plus Jane Fonda equals true love. Now, I'm of the mindset, obviously, that Drake and Jane Fonda need to get together. Jane Fonda is an attractive older woman, and Drake's a very successful young rapper or youngish rapper. They're a match made in heaven. All we're gonna do is get Jane Fonda away from Ted Turner, and we can hook her up with Drake, who's gonna help. I'm looking for people to help me get Drake and Jane Fonda together. Is Jane Fonda still alive? I'm curious about that. Is Jane Fonda still alive? Good question. Yes, Jane Fonda is still alive. Figures she went to Vassar. It figures. Of course Jane Fonda went to Vassar. What a Vassar lady she is. Anyway, how old is Jane Fonda? She was born in 1937. She's my dad's age. 4 years younger than my dad. Is Jane Fonda currently living with Ted Turner? Jane Fonda has never been content to raise hell only from the comfort of Los Angeles. The 81-year-old actress, activist, and exercise phenom is moving to Washington for 4 months with a plan to get arrested a lot. Oh, Jane Fonda. You're such a joke. Jane Fonda is a terrible human being. No other way to put it. She is an absolutely terrible human being. And Drake's a terrible rapper, so they deserve each other. Sorry, Drake. I'm handing out mates according to competency, and your lack of competency in the rap business means you get stuck with Jane Fonda. Just all there is to it. Maybe if you were a better rapper, you wouldn't have to get stuck with Jane Fonda. Think about that next time before you start rapping. I'm a matchmaker, Finty Deluxe. I have made a match made in heaven. Drake plus Jane Fonda equals true love. All we got to do is hook them up. Because Jane Fonda's a terrible human being, and Drake's a terrible rapper. Therefore, they deserve each other. ENFP. She's got to be an ENFP. She's so dumb. No offense, ENFPs. People with incredibly shitty politics, I didn't think of them as ENFPs. If you've got incredibly shitty politics, I just go, you must be an ENFP. Why is Jane Fonda a terrible human being? Because she mistakes her strong feelings about things for good policy advocacies. She's a terrible policy advocate. She has no concept of what public policy ought to be. And yet she's passionate about it. It's like a blind person being passionate about their positions on different paintings, you know? Like, you can't even see. What are you doing making a big fuss about which painting is better? And Drake is a terrible rapper. Rafael Alvarez, would you like to me explain to you why he's a terrible rapper? It's because he's not any good. That's why. Because he's a censor. He's a damn censor. Goddamn censors can't do anything. Need some INTPs to knock some sense into some ENFPs. I agree. I'll wrap up with a ghostwriter? What the fuck happened? As Kendrick Lamar asks. You know, that's about Drake. He's the one who has a ghostwriter. So, you know, anybody with any sense agrees that Kendrick Lamar is vastly superior to Drake. Drake is an unhealthy ENFJ, all about the flash and not about the integrity. Well, he's all about the flash, or it. You know, for him, being a rapper is about posturing and such, rather than the music at all. Canoodling was fine. It was great. Rachel and I were listening to the Wheel of Time book, and partway through a chapter, just like, okay, let's pause this because, oh yeah. And then I had a crazy dream last night. A dream that was very upsetting. I'm glad to know it was just a dream. I dreamed that last night that Rachel confessed to me that she was actually 16 years old and that she'd been lying this whole time. I was like, what? I'm going to get in so much trouble. Fortunately, it was just a dream. I was really worried in my dream, though. I was like, oh, shit. No, she's 35. She's not 16. The funny thing is, when I started going out with Rachel, before I really talked to Delilah much about it, but just mentioned it, she had a dream that Rachel was like 20 years old, and it really upset her. So, obviously, there's some concern about that sort of thing. No, I don't know who Rachel Hader was, but as is always the case, it seems, when people come and try to hate, it tends to backfire on them. Because, I mean, it's like, it just isn't the case that somehow Rachel's holding me back at all, remotely. Yesterday I had a Curious Kyra is not 17. She's 27. Okay. Just for the record. That may have that exchange with Kyra, not all of which was public, may have been a role in my dream. Also, you know, yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Speaking from experience, I feel like when you own your own, you are more focused on. When I'm on my own, um, well, when I was on my own, I may have been more focused on MBTI, but um, that doesn't mean if I were on my own right now, I'd be more focused on MBTI. The thing about MBTI is I've kind of exhausted the topic. I don't like arguing about it, and people always want to come in and argue. I've got a fairly full understanding of mechanics of it, and it's complicated and it's hard to explain, and it's hard to win those arguments. So it gets frustrating for me, you know. And the thing is, what I've always been most gratified by doing, what always has convinced me that I'm spending my time wisely, is music. If I'm making music, I feel like, okay, I'm doing what I ought to be doing. I'm doing something that is worthwhile. Because, hi, Alan, holla back at you. I mean, obviously, it's not the case that I'm successful with music, but I do know this, that when I make a song that I like, then I will listen to it many times again in the future and enjoy it many times in the future and feel a sense of satisfaction that I made something that has lasting worth, at least to me. Talking videos, philosophizing and stuff, it's not an absolute value for me. TI is not an absolute value. Whereas NI is an absolute value for me. So that probably explains somewhat why I'm just not that interested in battling over cognitive functions. And pull my first bong rip of the day. I had a good night's sleep last night. Saw like 10 hours of sleep. And this will be a juicy bong rip. I mean, I'll tell you this much. Creating, well, this is the thing, Raphael. Creating always feels good. I have a problem, which is trying to get my creative energies to be productive or result in things that get finished is a challenge for me because a lot of times I will end up starting 5 things for one thing that I complete. I have a lot of projects that I put a lot of hours into that are never going to reach fruition. So that's the area where I have to develop. I have to develop in staying attentive to results, you know? Yeah, okay. Making stuff is a process that's very flow state for me. If it's going well, if I'm feeling whatever it is I'm making, it means that I am in a state of flow, and that always does feel good. But smaller projects with easily measurable outcomes tend to be more gratifying. Like I had to make a choice yesterday after I finished that song. I had a fun idea for a video, but that would have taken a long time to make. It been very time and labor intensive. would it have been worth it? Tough to say, but I went with the easier video instead. And I just put it in the captions. That's easy to do. That's quick. I mean, yeah, as far as big projects go, I do have several big projects kind of in the works, but at the end of the evaluation of everything, what it comes down to is this. Most of the hours of the day I'm going to be spending on stuff that produces no lasting object. Like this, for example. It produces an object that persists, namely a video of this live stream, but it's not worth anything really, in the same way that news isn't worth anything the next day. The news broadcast from yesterday isn't worth anything today. Live streams have that same kind of quality to them. Uploaded videos can indeed have legs, as they so to speak, which means, for example, my the videos that I made recently where it's like strong and weak celebrities, that one continues to do well. It continues to get views, and it'll make me a little bit of money, you know. But well, the bigger the project, the more follow through you have to have, which means the less distracted by other projects can you get, and that's the challenge of it. Well, there's that too. I mean, look. I mean, the bottom line is I'm currently doing YouTube how I want to do YouTube. I wasn't even going to go into any of that, Kyra. I didn't mean to bring that up or anything. And I didn't plan to clarify anything about it. But glad to see you here and hope you're doing well. And know that I have no judgment about that whole thing at all. I don't feel like critical at all. I feel glad that you came clean about it. You know, that's it. My experience, if you overcome the overwhelming urge to just be efficient with your time, then it feels great. Yeah, there is one in the works. There's a book about types in the works. That's a big project that I have going on that I actually plan to hopefully try to include Hambone in it a little bit. Yeah, well, it's because somebody remembered and brought it up. You know, I have kind of a unique challenge in life, which is when you're as liberated as I have become at this point in my life, and I am extremely liberated, by which I mean I've got very few responsibilities and a lot of free time, and a decent, an acceptable amount of resources to direct towards things. Not certainly by no means rich, but enough resources that I can do things that I want to do, more or less, that I may not be able to travel to Europe or something, but I can do a road trip up the coast. Kyra, to be perfectly honest, I think you feel a lot of hopefulness saying it out loud. Being honest about something that's difficult to be honest about is growth and worth commendation. Don't feel bad about it. Feel good that you're here being real. That's how I think about it. It's like there's something really freeing about being real and not bullshitting. It is a shame I don't have 100,000 subscribers. It's a crying shame. I'm sure I don't understand how you truly feel, Kyra. I am, after all, a bipolar person, but that doesn't change my attempt to positively spin it. Well, I have some basic trusts in markets. Like, if I were interesting enough to enough people, I'd be making $10,000 a month too. But I'm not, so I'm not. It's not like the market's wrong. Does that bipolar have something to do with narcissism? Because a big part of narcissism is not being able to reflect. I don't think it does, actually. I actually think probably bipolar is contraindicative of narcissism. And the reason for that is because a narcissist lives in a subjective universe in which things don't have to be, well, I could give you a metaphysical pat on the back. How's that? Does that feel better? It's okay, Kyra. You're among friends. Pat, 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 pat. Yeah, and bipolar means TI tool, which means you are basically an objective person. You take as your default approach that which is defensible. Now you can see narcissistic tendencies in somebody like Nekio Loins. But even she, interestingly, you can see the difference between her kind of spite monkeying and, say, Hoary Clown spite monkeying. Hoary Clown spite monkeying has no relationship to the truth at all. It's like she just say patently false things about me that are the opposite of what's true, even. Whereas Nekio Loins tries to spin true things as negatively as possible and use them against me. She doesn't really openly lie about me. Okay, well, I'm not trying to get you to laugh, Kyra. I'm trying to indicate to you that we all periodically get like messed up by by getting stuck in the metaphysics of things and ignoring what's right in front of us. Intuitives tend to. What's right in front of you is that you are among friends, people who want well for you, who appreciate your wit and your cleverness and all that stuff, and who are themselves, probably none of us, do we ever feel like we've all got it figured out, you know? We all have our own struggles too. You're you're amongst human beings is the thing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to be good. You just have to be morally good and open. I don't think it was Cloud. He put a comment saying it was not him, and I didn't think it was him at the time. I don't think it was. I take him at his word when he says it was not him. That's a good idea for a video, Bubble Puppy. I'm not trying to TE you, Kyra. I ain't telling you, making any suggestions about what you should do or whatever. I'm saying it's all good. It might not be good for you, but know that that doesn't change the fact that you're welcome here and appreciate it. And we, you know, I don't think there's anybody here who hasn't periodically felt like they're in a bad spot, that life's unfair, that all right, well, I don't know how to help you with that exactly, Kyra, but I would suggest take some deep breaths and just look around. Use your extroverted sensing in the polar. Look around you. Remember where you are. You're right there. You're fine. Nothing's happening. It's all good. Kyra, that's ridiculous. You can totally come back here now. People don't want to judge you. No, nobody is. People don't want to judge you, and nobody hates you for that. You know, we all have our our battles. That's the truth. We all have our battles. And I am not anybody who is interested in condemning people for fighting their battles. Leave it to the INTJ. Oh, F you, polar. Kyra, listen. You're in a different spot than you've ever been before. And the reason you're in a different spot than you've ever been before is because now you're a member of this community. And before, you were more isolated substantially than you are now, because prior to now, you weren't a member of this community. And it's a substantial difference in your life than it was prior, because having the ability to talk to people, be honest, get things out, have them affirm your being regardless is something that a lot of people lack. I think it's fair to say there aren't a lot of spaces as real as this one, and as look. The point is there. It's very difficult to have an environment like this that is in which stuff like this can be talked about safely. And what I mean by safely is you're going to get some responses that don't come from a place of empathetic understanding, like Raphael's. If you want to really take your life, you will. And if you have someone to talk about, at least I'm glad to listen, but nobody should interfere with people's decisions. Depending on how you read that, you might take that as reductive in some fashion. But the reason that this environment is safe to Raphael, I'm not saying it wasn't, for God's sakes. I'm saying a person might take it as. Okay. The point is, you don't have to answer anyone, but more importantly, this is the safest thing you can do. It's like, is to talk about this, at least with the distancing of talking about it in chat, so you're not having to talk about it in person with somebody. And the fact is, this environment is a fundamentally good environment, which is to say, I'm concerned about the well-being of people. I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I'm a little rough and tumble, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I don't want anybody's feelings to get hurt. At least ideally. People do, but this is not an environment that fundamentally doesn't have regard for your or anybody else's emotional and mental well-being. It does have regard for that. And so we can talk about these things, safe to know that that's the dominant frame here, regardless of who else might come in and take a different frame or not. Eric, if somebody were to say that, I would say, I mean, I might call the cops or something. I don't know. I would ask, why are you burdening me with this then? Definitely not B. I didn't call you unempathetic. Look, if you begin a communication with that structure, if you want a meow, people are going to view it as potentially harsh, regardless of what comes after it. Okay? I'm not saying you're being okay. Then don't fucking care. You don't need to freak out about it. For God's sakes. Look, the fact is, what we're talking about here, as Kyra has indicated, is, a mental health issue. My girlfriend has a mental health issue, and I've got to see her at her um, I've got to see her manifesting that at its worst, and I've got to see her when she's not manifesting that at all. So remember, there are both states of being. Um, my friend once texted another friend about being suicidal. She got him. Um, the word you're looking for is what is the word? Committed, I guess, or not acted. I've never heard that word before. What is acted? Is that a word? Oh, Baker acted? Yeah, it's not a word. I don't know what the Baker Act is. Um, I mean, the thing is, interestingly, Rachel has a similar uh, opinion about going to the mental hospital. Getting hospitalized is something to um, I mean, the thing is, it's not an awful place in the sense the one that I saw wasn't. It was strange. It was kind of sparse and barren, but wasn't like anybody was being abused or anything. But the reason that I think that Rachel has such a negative association with being hospitalized is, of course, generally it's non-consensual. It wasn't this time. Because of the sentence construction. I already told you. Because if you begin a sentence with, if you want to, then, that's one style of interaction, right? It typically correlates sentence structure-wise with the non-empathetic style of interaction. I'm not even busting your chops, homie. I just used that thing as an example, trying to discuss that. Well, because it's taking a solvency approach and instead of a commiseration approach. But whatever, I wasn't even accusing you of it. I was just using it as an example of something that might be perceived as unempathetic. So chill out. And I do want to point out, Raphael, that I gave you very good reasons as to why it might be perceived as unempathetic. Totally legitimate reasons. So I don't know why you'd be so fussy about that. Well, listen, Kyra. You're very talented. You're very talented. And I'm really looking forward to finishing up the song that I'm working on that's made out of our little jam that we had. And I think it's going to come out great. Solve this on your own, Eric the Empath? That's the thing. I'm not trying to solve it. I don't think I can solve Kyra's problem. What I do is I think I can try to promote and provide an environment in which people can be honest about stuff like this without getting condemned and judged. And I guess to feel as though this capacity. Is that Rachel? Oh yeah, it is. Rachel's putting regular trash in the green trash can. Rachel. Look, I'm not saying you have many things to be happy about, Kyra. I'm saying that you're in a better place with this resource than you are without it, and that you should take some solace in that. Circumstances can't really change how you feel. The other thing to remember is shit blows over fast. Shit always blows over fast. To the extent that people, to the extent that this informs people's understanding of you, it's for a finite, limited period of time, and it'll pass. So, relax. It's all good. Relax. The guy who told me relax. When I went to Taiwan, Kyra, listen to me. I'm going to give you some advice that I heard from an INFP that probably applies to an INFP. What you need to do is you need to find your pain self and establish boundaries around that pain self. Okay? Now, you're not going to get rid of your pain self. You're not trying to send it off into the world. You're simply putting boundaries around your pain self. You have your joy self, your creation self, your whatever other self, and you've got your pain self. But there are boundaries there. It does not define you. You are not only your pain self. Isn't that good, INFP?
That really is great advice.
That advice made no sense to me when I heard it from an INFP. That's ridiculous.
That's so funny.
What is this pain self shit? I have no idea what that is.
But that doesn't discredit that it wouldn't help.
I suspect probably INFPs it makes sense to.
Yeah.
You got to have some understanding of FI for that to make sense.
When I had with my supervisor type, he told me about how he had these like exotic flowers that his wife had planted and they were overplanting them. So if I wanted to get some from him, like just to remind him, that was the test. I was like, I'm not really that comfortable taking your flowers, so I'm never going to bring this up again until you do. And that was a test. He wanted me to like be more approachable to him and to be like, work out like, hey, business, almost like act very like business like.
What type was this person?
ENTJ.
Oh. Are you talking about this, Aaron? Let's see. Siddhartha today. Siddhartha side. To watch Siddhartha try. Siddhartha sit down. Siddhartha's tree. In that moment he released the mysteries he did not relate. Siddhartha man. Siddhartha the royal. Oh, I had an extra intro, right? Get the words out for a second properly. Well, Aaron, I will say this. It's going on YouTube sooner because of your enthusiasm for it. That makes me want to work on it. The fact that you remembered it, it got stuck in your head, and you were like, when is this song coming out? That's a powerful indicator of what I always have felt about this song, which is that it's incredibly good. And
can't go to waste.
I can't go to waste. Yeah. Right. This is an extra intro.
It is too good to not be published somewhere. I mean, not that it wasn't before, but it's going to be crisper.
Right. Well, it's going to have a real recording on it. God damn it, Eric. That's my fault. This time I was trying Start the sedate, sit on the side. What's impossible to watch Siddhartha try. Siddhartha sit down. Siddhartha's tree. In that moment he released some mysteries he did not relate. Siddhartha's mind. What would come to Siddhartha not when he tried. Now watch what he makes. Siddhartha seems to accompany his greatest waking dreams. Siddhartha was royal. Half his life. Siddhartha the royal. Had it right. Siddhartha recoiled at the sight. Siddhartha today. Siddhartha, where are you now? The fantasy is to have Siddhartha right in front of me. And what would I say? Siddhartha, it's impossible to watch Siddhartha try. Siddhartha, sit down. Siddhartha, please. Will you just come to your senses? Will you retrieve your functional gait? Your fighting pride. Irresponsible now that your hands are tied. Siddhartha was royal. Half his life. Siddhartha the royal. Had it right. Siddhartha recoiled at the sight. Siddhartha sedate. Give me goosebumps singing it. So good.
I like goosebumps.
You're a debater. I am putting some valid points, but you ignore them because you care too much about safety, very HP-esque. What do you mean I'm ignoring your valid points? Just because I'm successfully deflecting them in a variety of ways doesn't mean I'm ignoring them. I do respond to what you say. You just don't like my responses. Even then, pain can be its own special compass, and losing your shoes can help you savor the watermelons of the future. That is really, really deep. I like that a lot.
I want to, watermelon.
Checkmate Aurelius.
You gotta have that watermelon of the future.
This is just such a great sentence. People immediately assuming that makes you incredibly angry. Makes you assuming what? That you're black? Yeah, well. Where do you find the beats? Do you make them? I find them on YouTube mostly. And I often alter them, sometimes substantially. Like the beat that is in the song Animal Party bears limited resemblance to its original form. It was altered. I messed with that beat a lot. But I have made my own beats in the past. Sometimes. I'm just talking about the drums. Basically, I get drums from YouTube.
A lot of people get a lot of music from YouTube. I know rappers, they get their, like, there are people who create beats and then they set them out there for people to use.
Right.
A lot of people do.
In general, I think my music comes out best when I use drums from YouTube. So that's what I do. But yeah, the thing about this Siddhartha song is I really want it to be right. Now that I've practiced singing it a lot, I think that I'm comfortable with the pace now, the tempo. For a while, I thought it was a little too fast, but I'm comfortable with the tempo. I need to make the bass part like I need to work on the tone of the bass. It's too square. It needs to be a little rounder, so to speak. And then I'm not sure what else, if anything, I need to do to it before I put it up. But I'm gonna probably prioritize that. Maybe even today, put down those vocals. I took my last 2 Adderall this morning, so I got a good night's sleep. Yeah, that song's a triumph. Corey's a genius.
Maybe once the regulations get lesser and lesser, we can chill with him and Liz.
Yeah. Tyner modal scales to jazz. Modal scales. Don't modal my scales.
Oh.
Yes, I do. Whether it's good or bad, you don't care. I do what? I ignore what you're saying. I do not ignore what you're saying. No, I didn't to your last point, Eric and La La Land. Eric, that's what's happening. La La, I can't hear you because it's making you mad. La La. No, I'm so mad. What are you talking about? What point am I ignoring? State your point that you think I'm ignoring. I'm not one to ignore points. So state what it is you think I'm ignoring. Well, state what it is you think I'm ignoring. I want to know what you think I'm ignoring so I can not ignore it. Well, look, I'm scrolling way the hell back up, and for the last long ass time now, you've just been complaining about me. You don't want to solve it at the same time, explain some dynamics in order to further understanding of yourself to ultimately solve a problem. But you don't try to solve problems. I agree. I don't try to solve problems. I'm not saying I'm trying to solve problems. Look, I can't solve other people's problems, but I can provide an okay, thank you. I got it. Well, I can provide an environment in which people can be more or less facilitated in solving their own problems. And I didn't critique you for being contraindicative of that environment. I just used your thing as an example of something that might be perceived as non-empathetic for the billionth time. You don't want to solve it at the same time explaining some dynamics in order to further her understanding of yourself to ultimately solve a problem. You don't try to solve problems. That's true. I am not trying to solve a problem. I'm explaining how problem solving might be approached, like a meta-analyst would. You're right. So why do you think I'm not responding to your point? That we're not in disagreement on that. But we're not in disagreement. Why am I going to argue the point if we're not in disagreement? Okay, so what do you want? What is it you think I'm not doing or am doing here, Raphael? I am agreeing with that point. That I'm a meta-analyst. I don't know what the hell you. That I do what by doing that? That I solve problems by doing that? Indirectly, maybe. I have no idea what you're trying to say. Okay, so I'm implicitly I'm trying to solve problems. But no, see, the problem is the word try, right? I would like to provide an environment conducive to problem solving, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to solve problems implicitly. It means I believe in producing a healthy environment rather than an unhealthy environment as an inherent good. It doesn't have to be instrumental to something. Right? It's like it could be successfully argued that there's an underlying utilitarian framework because I'm arguing. How am I being a fucking hypocrite? You might argue that there's an inherently utilitarian framework because I'm arguing that the good it links to a problem, an environment that is conducive to openness and problem solving. But I just think it's an environment openness to, I think it's an environment conducive to openness, transparency, and affirmation. The fact that will inevitably link to people being more able to engage with themselves and their own problems, I think is probably true, but is not my reason. So that's the case. I just did explain, Raphael. I explained everything you could possibly want me to explain. I don't know. Did I say that I'm a hypocrite? I mean, how am I a hypocrite? That's just insane. In what way am I being hypocritical? I'm obviously not being hypocritical.
But running thought says, it's true.
So Raphael, foremost, it is not the case that I am ignoring you, okay? Just because I'm talking about something else right now and certain occasions doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. It means that I'm addressing something other than just what you say. Doesn't matter if your reason you tried to solve by doing it, whether you like it or not, but you denied that fact. No, Raphael, it's not the case that I tried to solve, okay? Just because I tried to promote a solvency-friendly environment or an environment that correlates with solvency friendliness does not mean that's my motivation. Okay? It's like I also try to promote an environment in which people don't get called racial slurs, but that doesn't mean that I'm motivated to live stream because I want to not have racial slurs or something. It's not my motivation. It's incidental to it.
Yeah.
Read what, Raphael? I've read everything you said. I have read every goddamn thing you've said. You said doesn't matter of your reason you tried to solve by doing it, whether you like or not, but you denied that fact. I did not try to solve her problem. By doing what? By doing what did I try to solve her problem? Okay, you know what, Raphael? You are asking too much of me then, because you are not expressing yourself clearly. You're demanding that I intuit what you mean. If I read carefully, I come to the conclusion that your words are not sensible. That you are not writing in a way that conveys what you mean clearly. So you're asking too much work of me. I just read exactly what you said, Raphael. I'm reading your words. Doesn't matter of your reason. You tried to solve by doing it, whether you like or not, but you denied that fact. Those are your exact words. I didn't say you were trying it, but you could implicitly. Okay, well, I'm saying you might interpret it as implicitly being motivated by a utilitarian frame, but my point is that would be incorrect. It's an incidental, not an implicit motivation. Look, I am trying my best, IAG last, to understand what Raphael is saying and be responsive to it. I am not trying to debate him unnecessarily. I'm not trying to dissemble. None of those things. He is just not explaining himself clearly, or not seeing anything purposeful, or I don't know. We're gonna have to go to the weed star.
Oh yeah? Okay.
We're out of weed.
We're out of weed.
I think.
Yeah. We're out of the banana and
this one's empty. I don't know where the other tall black one is. You know where it is?
No.
Oh, here it is. Oh no, we have some of this. That's good. Not much.
If we have to go, we have to go.
Yeah, we do. We are going to have to go to the weed store, but we do have enough for right now. Okay. Cloud is here to disavow any notion that it was he who was Rachel Hader.
Okay, cool. We have really no idea who it could be then, huh?
Who knows? I believe Cloud. I don't think it was Cloud.
Yeah, I don't think it was Cloud.
I didn't think it was Cloud last night either.
Because I actually think that Cloud likes me. I never really got much hate from Cloud.
Okay, well, I'm glad that I helped solve her problem. Whether it's my intent, I do like that. To the extent that I help her solve her problem, I do like that, Raphael. But what I'm saying is, it's not my motivation. Okay, I agree that to solve it, she must do something. I'm not disputing that, and I agree that to the extent that I help her solve her problem, I like that. But that's nevertheless not my motivation. Cloud only hates reptilians and Luciferians.
Hey, I'm neither of those, so I guess I'm in.
Okay, well, I don't know what Raphael, I don't know what the problem is. You keep saying, you did use the word try. I didn't deny doing it. I didn't deny that. You are trying to make less nuanced the distinctions I draw. You're saying that because I denied purposefully being a problem solver, that I denied solving problems. That's not the case. That's artificially reductive, right? That's not. I mean, it's incorrectly reductive. You understand and agree with that, Raphael? Where I said, listen, Raphael, it's when I spoke my words. I didn't write text anywhere, right? I said, why are you arguing this point so strongly? What do you think I'm accusing you of? And what do you think you're accusing me of? I don't even know. You've narrowed this thing down to such a minor point of distinction that I can't understand what you're still pushing for here. Listen. Do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? I don't really want to hurt you. I don't really want to make you cry. Do you really want to hurt Q? Okay, I agree. It produces problem solving, but it's not willfully solving problems. There's a difference, and that's okay. I draw that distinction. It's correct, and you're trying to make it not a meaningful distinction, but it's on you, dude. Hey, Raphael, what response from me would satisfy you? There is none that is consistent with reality. If you want me to concede that I was lying and being hypocritical or something, well, it's not the case. Why don't you talk to her? Maybe you can help one another. She is from America. Yes, America. Land of the free. You don't even be to apologize about anything. Don't even be. That you agree on being hypocritical by saying you didn't try to solve a problem. No, I wasn't being hypocritical. I didn't try to solve her problem. I'm suggesting that being a member of this community enables her to problem solve more effectively, and that's a good thing. That doesn't mean I'm trying to solve a problem. There's nothing hypocritical about that. It's called decency in a non-TE frame. Your attempt to frame it as hypocrisy is ridiculous and totally unwarranted. You have no good warrant for that. Just because I try to produce a solvency conducive environment, or at least an environment that is, I try to produce an environment where people genuinely are honest and caring and good, that they're not working against somebody, right? So in that regard, it's going to be solvency friendly. It's a safe environment because it has somebody refereeing the thing, namely me, who is deft discursively, can handle everything, and has sufficient amount of analytical robustness to make all the necessary distinctions. So, okay, but listen, Raphael, to say that I'm problem solving is to assume that because I factor solvency into a calculus, that it is the predominant factor, that we should define it as such. That's just not the case. Okay, so I did say something. You're right. I engage discursively here with people. That's true. That doesn't mean I'm trying to solve their problems. Just because I respond to what they say in a way that is consistent with a good environment doesn't mean I'm trying to solve their problems. What suggestions did I make for her? I guess I did make a couple of suggestions for her. I said, relax. It's all good. I made observations, positive observations. I don't think that was trying to solve a problem. I don't feel any responsibility for the outcome in the sense that I feel responsibility for producing the right kind of environment. I feel responsibility if somebody comes in who's trying to be toxic in some way to rid the environment of them. I'm arguing with you. What does it look like I'm doing? Yes, I did what? I made some observations that hopefully are helpful. I mean, I hope they're helpful in the sense that I don't hope they're helpless. But why am I so pussing around? Why do you insist on calling it problem solving? Am I problem solving now? Why do you insist on calling it problem solving? Why can't I just be making observations, engaging discursively with people, making obviously observations consistent with the good without trying to solve their problem? Why do you insist on defining it as that way? Yes, I do argue with you. I am arguing with you right now. I am not agreeing with you. You're right. You're right. Well, I disagree with you because you insisted on defining everything through a solvency frame, which is there's no reason for. So, and you haven't explained that or justified it. Talk about people ignoring other people. You ignore me. I have explained to you on multiple times what the problem here is. You are calling something problem solving that is not, because not everything that's defensible, it's not defensible because of its problem solving. It's defensible for other reasons. Problem solving is an incidental to it. In the same way that I don't come here for purposely to teach Raphael to think better, that is inevitably an outcome of it. Nevertheless, it's not my reason for doing this. My reason for having this conversation is not to make you a better thinker. Is it inevitable that you'll be a better thinker after having this conversation? Yes. Does that mean it's my purpose? No. Am I solving the problem of you not being a good enough thinker? No. I'm just winning the argument. That's all. Do you understand now? There's plenty of analogs for you. You should have no further difficulty understanding. Get it? My word. Well, that's your problem. You insist that everything that solves problems is problem solving. Incorrect. Yeah, I do. Curious Kyra, everyone reminds me of my friend Matt, who who also said he was very worried about hand injuries. And that I was talking to him about that. It actually was when I started thinking, oh, I should worry about that too. I really should. Okay. Let's smoke this cigarette. And we're gonna have to go do some errands and stuff today. I'm not really feeling very errandy, but I've got to go to the weed store. I'm gonna have to go get cigarettes. I'm gonna have to what else? I have to get the mail because my dad's been gone for a few days. I'm supposed to get the mail out of the mailbox. So there's a locked mailbox that I just leave it in there the last couple of days, but I'll go get it. What else do I have to do? I have to check my email. I have to respond to people. I've got a bunch of people waiting for responses. I haven't responded to them yet. Why is the like-dislike ratio the way it is when you were winning? I don't know. What is it like? I don't know what it is. The like-dislike ratio. Do I have a lot of dislikes right now? What's my explanation for the dislikes? Anybody else want to explain the dislikes? Are you trying to problem solve? What problem is there? What problem are you trying to solve? My lack of likes? Well, that probably, bringing up the subject would probably help. I'll always get some dislikes. The dislikes are due to people who really don't like me at all, just hate me, and dislike everything I make. So thanks, Raphael, for solving the problem. Appreciate that. Oh no, it's 2 now. I went down to 2. Maybe I should like it. Oh, Cloud, no angry faces, please. Don't hate us. Love us instead. Love us with your heart. You dislike this one? Okay, that's fine. Well, then that's you, but usually it's not you. I get a lot of dislikes on some. There are some videos where I got like just an amazing amount of dislikes. And sometimes I don't. I've become inured to it. Because there are some good and very thoughtful things you say. What do you think? I think you're right. I say some good, very good and thoughtful things. Cloud is unbannable and should remain that way. What? Oh, I see. You were responding to Running Fox. I don't think he's INFJ anymore, frankly. He's so combative. How could he be INFJ? I don't know what he is. He could be INTJ, I guess. He must be INTJ. Raphael, I must have gotten him wrong. I mean, the thing is, he's a tough one. He's definitely not NE. I don't think. INTJ possibly. Of course, if Raphael tells you to fuck off, Kyra, then he might be. That would be indicative of FI polar. We'll see what he says right now. I don't know. Alan Bryant, the thing to remember is Raphael is not claiming to be an INFJ. He is claiming I got it wrong by saying he was an INFJ. I am agreeing with him. I apparently got it wrong. There's no way he's supposed to be an INFJ. No INFJ is that just FEB damned combative.
I like the array of colors in our clothes.
Me too. INFJ walks a lonely road. If all the people who claim to be INFJs because it's supposedly so rare, but they don't know what being an INFJ is really like. They would not want to be one if they did. INFJ walks a lonely road. Well, I hope that Rachel feels understood well beyond that which anybody's understood her before.
I finally feel understood.
I believe I do. I think that being with me would have to be fairly liberating for an INFJ because I think in general, INFJs don't feel understood at all and feel like they're nobody's keeping up with them intuitively, really. Let's see. Kind Eric, is raising my hand a use of SE? In this environment, no, it's a use of extroverted intuition or introverted thinking, possibly.
Yeah, sure. I like to raise my hand sometimes when there's a subject that, like, I want to give my opinion and everyone's talking. I'll be like,
Yes, I'm changing my mind on Raphael's type. There's no way he's an INFJ. From his emails and his emails are just like this too. By the way, they're all like, it's like, okay, chill out.
are you gonna retype him?
I mean, I'll maybe I'll retype him for. I think you're probably an INTJ. Hey, you're not Hitler. You're just a bit insensitive. I've had similar problems. Doesn't mean you're bad. Just means you don't really consider other people's feelings. Okay, we could do a live retype. We could do that.
That's fun.
Yeah. We could live stream the retype and we could get chat questions from the chatters if you want. And we could
that's
do
a great idea.
Do you want to do that, Raphael? It won't cost you anything if we do it like that. Let's see what's.
It's pretty good. It's not too bad for what's left.
Yeah, we got a bowl or
Another
two.
bowl. I have enough for me, so we'll be good before we go.
Okay. Lawnmower says, I say Raphael's INTP. I see myself in him. I think he, if I remember correctly, he didn't do well on the TI test particularly. Not TI Dom, not any Dom. Chill mode works for you. Okay, good. Chill mode it is. Yeah, Kyra, stay away from the puppies, please. That really doesn't work for you. Okay. That puppy murdering habit of yours, it's just not working. Oh, Kyra, I'm going to solve your problem right now, okay, Missy? I'm going to solve your problem. Listen, Raphael, here's the thing I'm going to admit. I may not try to solve problems, but I do like them to go away after a while. Carefully managed private time. Got your hand on your junk, your headphones in, you're chilling. That's Al Bundy style chilling. Hey, I can make some jokes. I'm allowed to make a little joke here and there. You know. No, I mean I like problem solving. I mean I don't like problem solving. I like problems being solved. Okay, that's the thing. I like problems being solved. That doesn't necessarily mean I like problem solving. And there is a distinction. And it's meaningful. Problem solving is I tend to find it presumptuous. I get a lot of problem solving directed at me. You know, a lot of TE people are telling me how to solve problems all the time. Well, I will say this, IAG last. I think that it's plausible in third slot. That's not hypocrisy confirmed. It was a joke, Raphael. I mean, for Christ's sakes, relax. I'm not a hypocrite. It's such a undeserved status. I totally don't deserve that status. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm imperfect, but certainly not a hypocrite. And the fact that I don't prioritize TE concerns is absolutely the case. You know, TE for me is when TI doesn't work and the world still demands me things. You failed the TI test? I don't remember. Okay, well, I said what I said. If you want to interpret it as agreement, you go ahead and interpret it as such. Well, I mean, the thing I remember about the test in general, the TI test, is it's a TI polar test. It's not exactly intended to be anything but that. And you know, when I typed that ESFP the other day, that lady, it was pretty clear that that it works really well as a TI polar test. It's like she was so textbook in her responses. I mean, I make mistakes periodically, Raphael, and I do have to apologize. And I do that a lot. I admit when I'm wrong a lot, and I apologize a lot. This is not one of those instances. Sorry. It's just not. That's one of the things we can be pretty sure that I'm not bullshitting you. I am human. I do make mistakes. I am wrong sometimes. People do catch me being wrong a lot. And I consistently acknowledge that when it occurs. That's not the case here, so I'm not going to acknowledge it. I mean, it is what it is, Raphael. You may find it inconvenient for you, but it just is what it is. I mean, like, my tests for various functions and stuff are not perfect, but when I talk to somebody for an hour, I generally have a good sense of what they are. If I don't have a good sense of what they are, I generally have a good sense of what they're not. And that's what happened with Raphael. I acknowledged I didn't have a good sense of what he was, but I had eliminated other possibilities. I think I had not enough cause to eliminate INTJ. I suspect that's what he is. But ESTP is also a possibility. I have one cigarette left. He's writing a lot of words, but yeah, your NE is pretty strong, Cloud. You got some pretty active 8th slot NE. I don't know, maybe it's because my primary example of ENTP is Eric, and he's way too ENTP even for an ENTP. I mean, it's funny how people will sometimes say I'm an ESFJ, though. It's kind of flattering. It means I got pretty good FE, at least some of the time. I can be like, hey, how you doing? What up? All right, I will email you, Raphael. I'll email you your time and we'll set it up. I have to write German Abitur. What's German Abitur? If I want to say I'm an ISFJ and build a proof around it, everyone who knows me might believe it. I mean, that's the thing, is you can make arguments. You can make arguments to defend a given type by just pointing to things that match up with type descriptions or something. It's, I may need to see Dr. Pimple Popper to have pimples. Goose pimples. Goose pimples. Responding is better than reacting. Does every being necessarily have a type? Well, I don't know if plants do. I don't know if plants have their own type or not. I think certain animals do. Eric, you can be both an argumentative ENTP and a high surfer, brah. Am I a high surfer? I used to surf. I was never good at surfing, though. I'm much better at skiing than surfing. Well, just remember this, Kyra. It's better to not be able to get out of bed than to not be able to get out of bread. You don't want to be stuck inside a giant loaf of bread. You have to eat your way out. Does God have a type? I don't know. Hard to say. I don't think so. How can a metaphor have a type? I mean, you know, it seems best to either believe in God or disbelieve in God, rather than to take this sort of philosophically reductive notion that needs a metaphor. Metaphor for what? You know? A metaphor for sausages? Is he also a simile? Or is he just a metaphor? Okay. Metaphor for the best possible being. But look, is the best possible being exist? Because look, the thing is, metaphor would suggest that it's a symbol of a thing rather than a thing in itself. But it would have to be a symbol that represented something, right? Hi, Moonwalker.
Hi.
Rachel's moonwalking. You're good at moonwalking.
Thanks. I missed you, so I wanted to come in and say hello.
Hi, beautiful.
Hi, handsome.
I should write a very simplified Bible that just has the main parts of it in it. Just like God's almighty, immortal, and unknowable. Then the whole Christ story. You can leave out a lot of the unnecessary details. Christ comes down, people suck. They kill him. He comes back
to include that.
He comes back to life. Says it's all right. It's cool. I forgive you all.
Is that an original idea?
That's the Jesus story.
Oh, that's the Jesus story?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought he was just my dude.
No, that's your gardener, Jesus.
Oh. Speaking of, it's like I could tell they haven't been like trimming over here, like in that bush, and I think they were afraid of you.
Oh, why?
Because at one time you were like, "Can you be it? When is this gonna end? It's so loud. Can you like? How long is this gonna take?"
Did I do that? I might have done that.
Yeah, it's okay. I think there's hilarity in it.
It's unprovable, but not unknowable. It's unreasonable. You say friends come and go, but was there ever a time you were more likely to cling on to friendships and or worry over them? I mean, I still do. But I've come to understand that other people don't necessarily share my opinion about that. Like, I called Spacey when the opportunity presented itself and talked to him for a bit, and, you know, he made it clear that that I guess his situation made it impossible for him to be friends with me, basically. The developers of Dwarf Fortress are badass. In their Steam page, the release date is stated as time is subjective. It's a good release date. I like it. So, God unknowable, and unreasonable. No, not unknowable. Why is it not unknowable? I mean, the thing is, what I say about God in general, Raphael, is that faith is a behavior, not an affirmation or a negation. So statements about whether God exists and stuff, those are affirmations, negations, arguments to be made. But faith is a behavior that includes prayer for me.
It smells like marijuana.
It doesn't necessarily link to a position argumentationally. So I could argue the atheist position, and that wouldn't run afoul of my faith. Well, like I said, Raphael, faith is a behavior. It's not an affirmation or a negation. So to say that I believe in something, well, I engage in faith-based behavior, but you cannot conclude from that I affirm any statement that you might make. If this were true, why does religion exist as long as humanity itself? I'm not really talking about religion. I'm talking about my relationship with God as a faith-based behavior, not as an affirmation. So in other words, I question why I exist as well. I don't know. I prefer to exist in a world in which I have been purposed for something, that I have some way of living more consistently with what I ought to be or less consistently, so that there's some sort of metric for success. That kind of metric for success has to be attained through magical thinking. You can't use reason to determine positive moral indications. So if you want to have positive moral indications to be a part of your life, then you're going to need to engage in some sort of magical thinking. The kind of faith-based behavior that I engage in is, I think, a very healthy and safe kind of magical thinking. So I think I also have my magical thinking fit properly into a metaframe, so that it is applicable when appropriate, and and not applicable when appropriate. So God is a metaphor to try to make sense of this question. It does a good job sometimes, not all the time. Well, I mean, look, again, you're trying to talk about God in terms of affirmative or negative statements, like God is a metaphor, which is a statement that one might affirm or negate. What I'm saying is that's a category error. God is that with which one engages in faith-based behaviors, not that about which one makes affirmations or negations. You might say, well, aren't you making affirmations about God? Well, I'm making the affirmation that that divinity is not that argumentationally, divinity definitionally is that which is indefensible argumentationally. If it doesn't include faith, then it's not magical thinking. Right? Okay, but you're not responding to what I'm saying, Raphael.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I'm just gonna put this here and smoke a bong rip.
Cool.
So this is the way that I have basically resolved the atheist, agnostic, theist question, which is it's these arguments are a category error. And the reason it seems so odd to have these arguments is that there's only one thing that we ever argue about whether or not it exists, and that's God. It makes no sense to argue about whether a given named thing exists, because it's a given named thing. It must exist in some capacity, conceptually or otherwise. So God is the only thing we argue about. And the arguments are always representative of a category error. That is to say, people who are engaging in behaviors of faith think sometimes that therefore it must validate argumentationally as a defensible, reasoned position. Of course, it doesn't validate argumentationally the defensible reasoned position, because that's not what it's supposed to be for. I mean, it's not what its nature is. A relationship with God in some capacity is a faith-based behavior that engages magical thinking. Why is it magical thinking? Because it doesn't justify argumentationally. It's not defensible with TI. Now, the thing is, you might point out that it's indefensible with TI and conclude that therefore we ought not afford it any value. But to say that then is to say that we ought not include any magical thinking in our calculi. But if we want to have a positive moral indication, that is to say, not only know what we ought not do, what we ought not do, we can determine with logic. But what we ought to do, we cannot determine with logic. So I engage in magical thinking to address that area because it's the only way to address that area. And it's appropriate to address that area. And I also think that I have my inclusion of, I didn't say you said that. I didn't say you said that. I'm not saying anything about what you said. I said that what I said right there. So I'm not talking about what you said. Right, that's true. No, you can't prove God on a physical level. You can't say God is empirically defensible, and you can't say God is logically defensible. You can't say either of those things, because definitionally, God is beyond the metrics of human beings, ineffable, so to speak. And that doesn't mean you wouldn't want to bone him. It means unknowable. Okay. I mean, the best, there's a couple of potential proofs that one might attempt to use to logically justify God, but they don't meaningfully tell you anything about God, except that there's a need for a word that's fairly undefined. So the observational proof saying that everything, in order for something to exist, it needs to be observed. It seems clear that there are things that humans have not observed that nevertheless exist, and therefore there must be a grand observer who's observing everything to make sure it continues to exist even when agents aren't observing it, and that thing is what we call God. That's one possible proof. But the answer to that proof is, isn't it equally possible that everybody is manifesting reality independently on their own console, so to speak, as per massively multiplayer online role-playing games? So, there's an answer to that proof. In other words, it's not definitive. It could be to us if we assume that we are all operating in the same universe, the same reality, the fundamental same reality, then the observational proof is a pretty strong one. If we want to assume that reality continues to exist and do stuff even when nobody's observing it, then that would require a grand observer to explain why it is parts of the universe that are not being observed by agents currently continue to be. A good explanation would be, well, there's a single grand observer who observes everything concurrently and keeps it into existence, keeps it existing. So that's not a bad proof. The other explanation, though, is it's not the case that we're all inhabiting the same reality, but that we each manifest reality independently on our own console, so to speak, and only share a physical world that maintains its commonality because we're all mutually observing it. So that's not a definitive proof. The other possible proof is a simple ontological proof that, well, it's named and people refer to it and people believe in it, and that makes it existent metaphysically. And the physicality of it is not the core of reality making. That it doesn't require physicality to be concretized. That would be an ontological proof that tries to blur the difference between map and territory, basically. Not a very strong argument, but better than most you hear. Certainly better than your watchmakers, fallacy arguments, and first cause arguments, and things like that. Bye, Raphael. Well, the thing about trying to talk about God existing or not existing is to talk about that at all meaningfully, you have to talk about a definition of what God is. And as soon as you start to try to define God, you have problems. So there's no point in even walking down that path. If you can't define what it is you're saying exists, then you're not meaningfully making an affirmation. Okay, so I got to go. We got stuff to do. We're out of weed. I'm out of cigarettes. And I got to get the mail before my dad comes home. And we need to run a couple errands. We need to go to the pet store. And I'm going to try to get some pellets for bottom feeders to eat because it seems like my bottom feeder is hungry. I'm not getting enough natural food in the tank. So I'm sure I'll be back later, but thanks for being here. And don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.
Bye.